Ethan Walker never imagined that agreeing to be a fake boyfriend would lead to holding a billionaire's hand in a hospital room, watching monitors beep with their daughter's heartbeat, while Olivia's face went pale from blood loss. What started as one lie at a party turned into the most real thing he'd ever experienced, a love he didn't ask for, a family he wasn't prepared for, and a fight for survival that would test whether a single father from Milwaukee and a woman who owned half the city could actually build something that lasted. This is their story. If you want to see how far love can go when everything falls apart, stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The garage smelled like motor oil and old coffee. Ethan Walker wiped his hands on a rag that had seen better days, squinting at the ancient furnace unit in front of him like it had personally offended him. It was Thursday afternoon, which meant he had exactly 2 hours before he needed to pick up his daughter from school, and this repair was taking longer than it should have. "You gonna make it?" his coworker Danny called from across the shop. "Yeah," Ethan muttered, even though he wasn't sure. The furnace was from the 90s, held together with electrical tape, and what he suspected was pure spite. He twisted a bolt that immediately stripped. "Son of a language," Danny said, grinning. Ethan shot him a look. "She's not even here. Practice makes perfect." That was the thing about being a single father. You never really stopped being one, even when your kid wasn't around. Maya was 8 now, gap-toothed and stubborn, with a laugh that could fill a room and a habit of asking questions Ethan had no idea how to answer. Questions like, "Why doesn't mommy live with us?" And, "Are we poor?" And, "Do you think I'm pretty?" He'd gotten good at deflecting. Not great, but good enough. The furnace finally cooperated, and Ethan finished the job with 10 minutes to spare. He clocked out, grabbed his jacket, and headed for his truck, a 2006 Ford Ranger that ran on determination and wishful thinking. The radio crackled to life when he turned the key, some talk show host arguing about tax policy. He switched it off. He got enough noise in his head without adding to it. Maya's school was a 15-minute drive through neighborhoods that all looked the same. Modest houses with chain-link fences, cars parked on lawns, kids riding bikes in the street. This was Milwaukee in October. All orange leaves and gray skies. The kind of place where people worked hard and didn't talk about it much. Ethan had lived here his whole life. He'd never really thought about leaving. He pulled up to the curb just as the bell rang. Kids poured out of the building like someone had opened a floodgate, all noise and backpacks and untied shoes. Maya spotted him immediately and came running, her ponytail bouncing. "Dad!" "Hey, kiddo." He caught her in a hug, even though she was getting too big for that. She smelled like chalk and grape juice. "How was school?" "Fine, we did fractions." "Yeah? You like fractions?" "No." He laughed. "Fair enough." They drove home with the windows cracked, Maya chattering about her friend Aisha and some boy named Tyler who ate paste during art class. Ethan made the appropriate noises, really, no kidding, while his brain ran through the evening checklist. Homework, dinner, bath, bed, repeat tomorrow. Their apartment was on the second floor of a building that had been old when Ethan was a kid. The carpet was beige, and the walls were thin, and the bathroom faucet dripped no matter how many times he tried to fix it. But it was theirs. He'd painted Maya's room purple because that was her favorite color, and he'd hung up every single drawing she'd ever made, even the ones that were just scribbles. "Can I watch TV?" she asked, dropping her backpack by the door. "After homework." "Dad?" "Maya." She groaned, dramatic, and flopped onto the couch like her bones had given up. Ethan hid a smile and went to the kitchen to figure out dinner. The fridge offered limited options: eggs, half a loaf of bread, some leftover spaghetti that might still be good. He settled on scrambled eggs and toast, which wasn't fancy but would keep them alive. Maya appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later. "I'm done. Let me see." She handed over her math worksheet, and he scanned it. Half the answers were right, and the other half were close enough that he didn't have the heart to make her redo it. "Good job. Can I watch TV now?" "Yeah, 20 minutes. She darted off, and he heard the TV click on, some cartoon theme song blaring. He finished making dinner, called her to the table, and they ate in the kind of comfortable silence that only comes from spending too much time together. Maya talked between bites about her day, and Ethan listened, really listened, because that was the one thing he'd promised himself he'd never stop doing. After dinner, he ran her a bath, making sure the water wasn't too hot, adding the bubble soap she liked even though it made the tub a pain to clean. While she splashed around, he tidied up the living room, folding the blanket she always left on the couch, putting her shoes by the door. The routine was the same every night, and he liked it that way. Structure meant stability, and stability was the only thing keeping them afloat. By the time he got Maya into bed, read her 2 chapters of the book they were working through, and turned out the light. It was almost 9. He stood in her doorway for a minute, watching her breathe, feeling that familiar ache in his chest that came from loving someone so much it scared him. Then he went to the living room, cracked open a beer, and collapsed on the couch. This was his life. Work. Maya, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was enough. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Okay. The party invitation came from Danny's girlfriend, who knew a guy who knew a girl who was throwing some kind of event at a house in the suburbs. Ethan didn't want to go. He had no interest in standing around making small talk with people he didn't know, drinking beer that cost too much, pretending to care about things that didn't matter. But Danny had been pestering him for weeks. Come on, man, when's the last time you went out? I go out. To the grocery store doesn't count. I took Maya to the park last weekend. That also doesn't count. Danny leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You're 32, not dead. You're allowed to have a life. I have a life. You have a routine, there's a difference. Ethan didn't have a good argument for that, so he just shrugged. But Danny kept pushing, and eventually Ethan caved, mostly because it was easier than saying no. He asked his neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, to watch Maya for the evening, promised his daughter he'd bring her back a cookie, and put on the one button-up shirt he owned that didn't have grease stains. The house was in Whitefish Bay, which meant it was big and expensive and full of people who worked jobs Ethan didn't understand. The kind of place with a foyer and recessed lighting and art on the walls that probably cost more than his truck. Danny's girlfriend met them at the door, all smiles and energy, and pulled them inside. So glad you made it. There's drinks in this kitchen, food on the patio. Just mingle. Ethan hated mingling. He grabbed a beer from the kitchen and found a corner to stand in, watching people laugh and talk and do whatever it was people did at parties like this. Danny disappeared almost immediately, swallowed up by the crowd, leaving Ethan alone with his beer and his regrets. He was about to leave when he saw her. She was standing by the fireplace, surrounded by people but somehow separate from them, like she existed in a different dimension. Tall, dark hair pulled back, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Ethan made in a month. She had the kind of face that made you forget what you were thinking about, sharp and elegant, with eyes that looked like they could see straight through you. Someone said something to her, and she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ethan didn't know why he kept watching. Maybe it was because she looked as uncomfortable as he felt. Maybe it was because she was beautiful in a way that didn't seem real. Or maybe it was just because he had nothing better to do. Then her eyes flicked up and met his. For a second, neither of them looked away. Then someone else pulled her into a conversation, and the moment broke. Ethan finished his beer and decided he'd done his social duty. He was heading for the door when a voice stopped him. Leaving already? He turned. It was her. Up close, she was even more striking. High cheekbones, dark eyes, a presence that made the air feel heavier. She looked at him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Yeah, Ethan said, suddenly aware of how rumpled he probably looked. Not really my scene. Mine either. He raised an eyebrow. You're at your own party. Not my party, a friend's party. I'm just here for appearances. There was something in the way she said it, tired maybe, or resigned, that made him pause. She glanced back at the room full of people, then at him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you have a girlfriend? Ethan blinked. What? A girlfriend or a wife. Are you with anyone? No. Why? She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Because I need a favor. Okay. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend. He stared at her. She stared back. I'm serious, she said. Lady, I don't even know your name. Olivia? Olivia Bennett. She said it like it should mean something. It didn't. Ethan Walker. Nice to meet you, Ethan. She glanced over her shoulder again, and he followed her gaze. A group of people were watching them, whispering. I'm about to get cornered by a bunch of investors who think I need a husband, and I just... She stopped, shook her head. I need a break. Just for tonight. Please. There were about 100 reasons to say no. He didn't know this woman. This was insane. He had to get home to Maya. But there was something in her eyes, something raw and desperate that made him hesitate. What do I have to do? Relief washed over her face. Just stand next to me. Smile. Pretend you like me. That's it? That's it. He should have walked away. Instead, he said, Okay. What? It started simple. Olivia took his arm, and they walked back into the room together. People turned to look, conversations pausing mid-sentence. She smiled at them, easy and confident, like this was the most natural thing in the world. Everyone, this is Ethan, she said. My boyfriend. The word hung in the air. Someone, a man in a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's rent, stepped forward. Boyfriend? Since when? Since recently, Olivia said smoothly. We've been keeping it quiet. The man looked at Ethan like he was trying to figure out if he was a threat. Ethan looked back, uncomfortable, but holding his ground. What do you do, Ethan? The man asked. HVAC repair. There was a pause. Then someone laughed, and the tension broke. For the next hour, Ethan stood beside Olivia and played the role of supportive boyfriend. He didn't say much, just nodded, smiled, kept his hand on the small of her back the way she'd quietly asked him to. People asked questions, and Olivia answered them with the kind of ease that came from years of practice. She was good at this, he realized. Good at performing. But every now and then, when no one was looking, her smile would slip, and he'd see the exhaustion underneath. Finally, she excused them both and led him out to the patio. The night air was cool, the noise from the party muffled. She leaned against the railing and closed her eyes. Thank you, she said. No problem. I mean it. You have no idea how much I needed that. He didn't know what to say, so he just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching her. You're different from the people in there, she said after a moment. Yeah, I don't have a trust fund. She laughed, a real laugh, and it surprised him. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? She opened her eyes, looked at him. You're honest. You don't care who I am. Should I? Most people do. He shrugged. I'm not most people. She smiled at that, small but genuine. No, I guess you're not. They stood there in silence, the city lights flickering in the distance, and Ethan felt something shift, something he couldn't quite name. I should get going, he said eventually. Got a kid waiting at home. Her eyebrows lifted. You have a daughter? Yeah, Maya. She's 8. That's, nice. He couldn't tell if she meant it or not, but it didn't matter. He started to leave, then stopped. You gonna be okay? Yeah, Dean. She hesitated. Actually, can I get your number? My number? In case I need another favor. He almost said no. But instead, he pulled out his phone, and she did the same, and they exchanged numbers like normal people, even though nothing about this situation was normal. Thanks again, Ethan, she said. Anytime. He left before he could change his mind. 3 days later, she texted him. Olivia, brunch this Sunday? Same deal. I'll pay you. Ethan, you don't have to pay me. Olivia, then why would you say yes? He stared at the screen, trying to figure out the answer. Ethan, because you asked. There was a long pause. Olivia, Sunday at 11. I'll send you the address. He told himself it was just another favor, one more fake date, then he'd be done. But when Sunday came, and he showed up at the restaurant, some upscale place with cloth napkins and waiters in ties, and saw her sitting at a table by the window, looking beautiful and tired and somehow relieved to see him, he realized he was already in deeper than he'd planned. You came, she said. Said I would. She smiled. Not everyone keeps their word. They ordered food, made small talk, and somewhere in the middle of it the act started to feel less like an act. She asked about Maya, and he told her about fractions and paste eating and the way his daughter laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Olivia listened, really listened, and when she talked about her work, something about real estate development and investment portfolios, he found himself actually interested. "You're good at this," he said. "At what?" "Pretending." Her smile faltered. "So are you." After brunch, they walked through the neighborhood, and she told him about the people she had to impress, the expectations she had to meet, the weight of running a company she'd built from nothing. He told her about late-night grocery runs and parent-teacher conferences, and the fear that he was screwing up his kid. By the time they said goodbye, it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like see you later. Well, the texts kept coming. At first it was just logistics, another event, another favor, but then it became more. Good morning messages, photos of things that made her think of him, questions about his day. He told himself it didn't mean anything. But when she invited him to a gala and he said yes without hesitating, he knew he was lying to himself. The gala was black tie, which meant Ethan had to rent a tux. He felt ridiculous putting it on, but when Olivia saw him, her face lit up in a way that made the discomfort worth it. "You clean up nice," she said. "You too." She was wearing a gown that shimmered when she moved, her hair down for once, and he forgot how to breathe. They spent the night dancing, talking, laughing at inside jokes that had somehow formed without him noticing. People watched them, and for the first time, Ethan didn't care. Let them look. Let them wonder. At the end of the night, she walked him to his truck, her heels clicking on the pavement. "Thank you, Chet," she said, "for everything." "You keep saying that." "Because I mean it." He leaned against the truck, looking at her. "This is still fake, right?" She didn't answer right away. "Right?" he repeated, quieter this time. "I don't know," she admitted. The honesty of it hit him square in the chest. He should have left, should have gotten in the truck and driven away and never looked back. Instead, he stayed. And when she stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, close enough that he could see the uncertainty in her eyes, he didn't move. "Ethan," she said softly. "Yeah? What are we doing?" "I have no idea." She laughed, but it was shaky, nervous. "This wasn't supposed to happen. I know. I don't do this. I don't—" She stopped, shook her head. "I don't let people in." "Then why'd you let me in?" "Because you didn't ask." The words hung between them, heavy and true. He reached out, slowly, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't pull away. "I should go," he said, even though he didn't want to. "Okay." But neither of them moved. And then, because the world had gone completely insane, or maybe because it finally made sense, he kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't smooth. It was messy and uncertain and real. And when she kissed him back, he felt something crack open inside him, something he'd been keeping locked up for years. When they finally pulled apart, both of them breathless, she looked at him like she didn't know what to do next. "That was—" she started. "Yeah. We should—" "Yeah." But they didn't. They just stood there, in the parking lot, the night air cold around them, and let the truth settle in. This wasn't fake anymore. It never really had been. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss over and over until it didn't feel real anymore. His phone sat on the nightstand, silent, and he kept waiting for a text that would either fix everything or ruin it completely. It came at 6 a.m. "Olivia." "We should talk." His stomach dropped. "Ethan." "Yeah." "Olivia." "Can you meet me? There's a coffee shop on Oakland. Brew & Co." "Ethan." "When?" "Olivia." "Now?" He looked at the clock. Maya wouldn't be up for another hour. He could make it work. "Ethan." "Give me 30 minutes. He got dressed quietly, left a note on the kitchen counter in case Maya woke up early, and drove across town with his heart doing something violent in his chest. The coffee shop was small and empty, the kind of place that smelled like espresso and old wood. Olivia was already there, sitting in the corner with a cup in front of her that she hadn't touched. She looked up when he walked in, and he saw it immediately. The walls were back up. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Hey. Silence. He waited. I don't know what I'm doing, she finally said. That makes two of us. She looked at him, and he saw the conflict in her eyes, the part of her that wanted this, and the part that was terrified of it. I don't do relationships, Ethan. I don't have time for them. I don't have the bandwidth. Okay? And you have a daughter, a whole life. I can't just... She stopped, shook her head. This is messy. Yeah. So we should stop before it gets worse. He nodded slowly, even though every part of him was screaming to argue. If that's what you want. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked down at her coffee. I don't know what I want. Then figure it out. It came out harsher than he meant, and she flinched. He immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, he said. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm not good at this either. I haven't been with anyone since Maya's mom left, and that was 8 years ago. I don't know how to do this, but I know I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. Neither do I. Then what do we do? She finally looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw the fear there. I don't know. They sat there for a long time, neither of them knowing what to say. Finally, Olivia reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were cold. Can we just try? She asked. No pressure, no expectations, just see what happens. Yeah, he said. We can do that. It felt fragile, like something that could break if either of them breathed wrong, but it was something. Bopante. The next 2 weeks were a blur of stolen moments and careful navigation. Olivia had meetings and board calls and events that filled her calendar until there was no room left to breathe. Ethan had work, and Maya and a life that didn't stop just because his heart had decided to complicate things. But they made it work. She'd text him between meetings, little messages that made him smile even when he was elbow-deep in ductwork. He'd send her photos of Maya doing homework, or the sunset from his apartment window, or the terrible dinner he'd burned trying to impress himself. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. They saw each other when they could. Coffee in the morning before Ethan had to get Maya to school. Lunch on days when Olivia's schedule had a gap. One night, she came over after Maya had gone to bed, and they sat on his couch drinking cheap wine and talking about nothing important until 2 in the morning. This place is small, she said, looking around the apartment. Yeah, I like it. He raised an eyebrow. You live in a penthouse. Exactly. This feels like a home. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just kissed her, and she kissed him back. And for a while nothing else mattered, but reality had a way of creeping back in. Maya asked about her one night at dinner. Who's Olivia? Ethan nearly choked on his pasta. What? You keep texting someone named Olivia. Is she your girlfriend? You should have seen this coming. Maya was 8, not stupid. She's a friend. Do you like her? Yeah, I like her. Maya considered this, twirling spaghetti around her fork. Does she like you? I think so. Good. You should have a girlfriend. You're lonely. The honesty of it hit him hard. I'm not lonely. I have you. That's different, Dad. He looked at his daughter, this kid who was too smart for her own good, and felt something crack in his chest. Yeah, I guess it is. Can I meet her? Maybe. Someday. Okay. She went back to eating like the conversation hadn't just turned Ethan's world upside down. He texted Olivia later that night. Ethan, my daughter knows about you. Olivia, what did you tell her? Ethan, that you're a friend. Olivia, and? Ethan, she wants to meet you. There was a long pause. Olivia, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Ethan, I know, no pressure. Olivia, thank you. He stared at the screen, trying not to feel disappointed. This was new for both of them. He couldn't expect her to dive into the deep end when she was still learning how to swim. But part of him wished she would. 3 days later, Olivia called him in the middle of the afternoon. He was on a job site, replacing a busted water heater, and almost didn't answer. But something made him pick up. Hey, he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. What's up? Are you free tonight? Yeah. Why? I have this thing. A charity gala. I know it's last minute, but I'll be there. She exhaled, relieved. Thank you. I'll send you the details. The gala was at some hotel downtown, the kind with chandeliers and marble floors, and people who looked like they'd never worried about money a day in their lives. Ethan showed up in the same rented tux from last time, feeling out of place the second he walked in. But then he saw Olivia, and everything else disappeared. She was standing near the bar, talking to a man in a suit, and when she saw Ethan, her whole face changed. She excused herself and crossed the room, meeting him halfway. "You made it," she said. "Of course I did." She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made him forget they were surrounded by 100 strangers. "Come on, I need to introduce you to some people." The night passed in a haze of handshakes and small talk, and Ethan pretending he understood what people meant when they talked about market volatility and capital gains. Olivia stayed close, her hand on his arm, her presence steady. Every now and then, she'd glance at him, and he'd see something in her eyes that looked almost like gratitude. At one point, they ended up on the balcony, away from the noise. The city stretched out below them, all lights and movement, and Olivia leaned against the railing with a sigh. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired." "You do this a lot?" "More than I'd like." She looked at him. "Thank you for being here. You don't have to keep thanking me." "I know, but I want to." He stepped closer and she turned to face him, and for a moment they just stood there, the space between them charged with something he couldn't name. "Ethan," she said quietly. "Yeah? I think I'm falling for you." The words hung in the air, raw and honest, and he felt his heart stutter. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." She kissed him then, slow and deliberate, and he felt the last of his defenses crumble. This wasn't fake. It wasn't pretend. It was real and terrifying, and the best thing that had happened to him in years. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "What are we doing?" "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." "Neither do I." They stayed there for a while, wrapped up in each other, and Ethan let himself believe just for a moment that this could actually work. It worked for 3 more weeks. Then everything fell apart. Olivia had been quiet for a few days, her texts shorter, her calls less frequent. Ethan told himself it was just work, that she was busy, that it didn't mean anything. But when she asked to meet him at the same coffee shop where they'd had their first real conversation, he knew something was wrong. She was already there when he arrived, sitting in the same corner, her hands wrapped around a cup she wasn't drinking from. She looked pale. "Hey," he said, sitting down. "You okay?" "I need to tell you something." His stomach dropped. "Okay." She took a breath, and he saw her hands shaking. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped. "What?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, and her voice cracked on the words. "I took 3 tests. They're all positive." Ethan stared at her, his brain refusing to process what she'd just said. Pregnant. She was pregnant. They were going to have a baby. "Say something," she whispered. He stopped, started again. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "How long?" 6 weeks, maybe? I don't know. I have a doctor's appointment next week." He ran a hand over his face, trying to think. This wasn't supposed to happen. They'd been careful. Mostly, but clearly not careful enough. "Ethan, please say something." He looked at her and saw the fear in her eyes, the uncertainty, the waiting for him to run. And something inside him shifted. "Okay," he said. "Okay?" "Yeah. Okay." He reached across the table and took her hand. "We'll figure it out." "You're not—" She stopped, swallowed. "You're not leaving?" "No, I'm not leaving." She started crying then, quiet and shaking, and he got up and moved to her side of the table, pulling her into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, and he held her, feeling the weight of what they'd just stepped into. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out." "I'm terrified." "Me too." They sat there for a long time, holding each other, and Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. His life had just gotten infinitely more complicated. But when he looked at Olivia, Tear-streaked and vulnerable, and still somehow the strongest person he'd ever met, he knew he wouldn't change it. The doctor's appointment confirmed what they already knew. Olivia was 8 weeks pregnant, due in early summer. The doctor gave them pamphlets and a list of vitamins and an ultrasound photo that showed a tiny blob Ethan couldn't quite make sense of. "That's the baby," the doctor said, pointing. Ethan stared at the image, trying to reconcile the grainy blob with the reality of a human being, his and Olivia's. "Everything looks good," the doctor continued. "We'll monitor you closely, but there's no reason to think this won't be a healthy pregnancy." Olivia nodded, her face unreadable. They left the clinic in silence, and Ethan drove her back to her place, a high-rise downtown with a view that made his apartment look like a closet. She invited him up, and he followed, feeling out of place among the sleek furniture and expensive art. "You want something to drink?" she asked. "Water's fine." She poured them both a glass and sat down on the couch, curling her legs under her. Ethan sat beside her, the ultrasound photo on the coffee table between them. "This is insane," she said. "Yeah. I run a company. I have investors breathing down my neck. I have meetings and deadlines and a board that already thinks I'm too emotional." She looked at him. "How am I supposed to do this?" "One day at a time." She laughed, but it was bitter. "That's easy for you to say." "No, it's not." He turned to face her. "You think I wasn't terrified when Maya was born? I was 24, broke, and her mom walked out 3 months later. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't, but I showed up every day, and it worked. You had to do it alone. You're not alone." She looked at him, and he saw the tears starting again. "You don't have to do this, Ethan. I have money. I can hire help. You don't have to—" "Stop." He took her hand. "I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I want to be." "Why?" "Because I love you." The words came out before he could stop them, and he saw her eyes go wide. Yeah, I love you. I didn't plan on it, but I do." She stared at him, and for a terrifying moment he thought he'd made a mistake. But then she kissed him, hard and desperate, and he kissed her back, and they fell into each other like drowning people grabbing for something solid. When they finally came up for air, she rested her forehead against his. "I love you too." "Yeah?" "Yeah." He smiled, and she smiled back, and for the first time since she'd told him about the pregnancy, he felt like maybe they could actually do this. Oh, telling Maya was harder. Ethan waited until he'd figured out how to explain it without making it sound like the end of the world. But no matter how he rehearsed it in his head, it all sounded wrong. Finally, one Saturday morning, he sat her down at the kitchen table and just said it. "Maya, I need to tell you something." She looked up from her cereal. "Okay." "You know Olivia, right? The woman I've been seeing?" "Your girlfriend." "Yeah, my girlfriend." He took a breath. "She's going to have a baby, which means you're going to have a little brother or sister." Maya blinked. "Really? Really? When?" "In a few months." She processed this, her face serious. "Are you going to marry her?" "I don't know yet." "Do you want to?" He stopped. Did he? "Maybe. Someday." "Good. I want you to be happy." He felt his throat tighten. "I am happy, kiddo." "Good." She went back to her cereal like the conversation hadn't just rearranged Ethan's entire understanding of his life. Later that day, he brought Maya to meet Olivia officially. They went to a park, neutral territory, and Ethan watched as his daughter and the woman he loved sized each other up. "Hi," Maya said. "Hi," Olivia said. "It's nice to finally meet you. Dad says you're having a baby." "I am." "Are you scared?" Olivia looked surprised by the question. "Yeah, a little." "That's okay. My dad was scared when I was born too, but he's a good dad. He'll help you." Ethan felt his chest tighten. Olivia smiled, and it was genuine. "I'm counting on it." They spent the afternoon together, the three of them, and Ethan watched as Olivia slowly relaxed around Maya, laughing at her jokes, answering her endless questions. By the time they left, Maya had decided Olivia was pretty cool, which in 8-year-old terms meant she approved. "She's nice," Maya said on the drive home. "Yeah, she is." "Do you love her?" "Yeah." "Good." Ethan glanced at his daughter, this kid who had more emotional intelligence than most adults, and felt something settle in his chest. Maybe they could do this. Maybe it would be messy and complicated and hard, but maybe it would also be worth it. The pregnancy progressed. Olivia's body changed, her stomach rounding, her energy dropping. She worked as much as she could, but Ethan could see the exhaustion creeping in. He started spending more time at her place, cooking dinners she could actually keep down, rubbing her feet when they swelled, holding her hair back on the bad mornings. She hated being vulnerable, hated needing help. But she let him help anyway, and that felt like a victory. One night, they were lying in bed, her head on his chest, his hand on her stomach. The baby had started kicking, little flutters that made Olivia wince. "Feel that?" she asked. "Yeah." "It's weird, right?" "Little bit." She laughed, and he felt the sound vibrate through him. "I can't believe this is happening." "Me neither." "Are you scared?" "Terrified." She tilted her head to look at him. "Really?" "Yeah, I keep thinking about all the ways I could screw this up. What if I'm not a good enough dad? What if the baby hates me? What if I can't handle 2 kids? You'll handle it." "How do you know?" "Because you're you." She kissed his jaw. "You show up, even when it's hard. That's all you have to do." He wanted to believe her, but the fear was still there, sitting in his chest like a weight. You see it. At 20 weeks, they found out they were having a girl. Olivia cried when the technician told them, and Ethan held her hand, feeling something enormous and terrifying unfold inside him. A daughter. Another daughter. Another person to love and protect and inevitably fail, but also another chance to get it right. They started preparing. Olivia turned one of her spare rooms into a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow, and filling it with furniture that cost more than Ethan's car. He helped assemble the crib, following the incomprehensible instructions while Olivia sat in the rocking chair, watching. "You're good at this," she said. "I've had practice." Still. He looked at her, this woman who had somehow become the center of his world, and felt the weight of what they were building. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was theirs. At 30 weeks, Olivia's blood pressure spiked. The doctor put her on bed rest, and she fought it every step of the way. She tried to work from her laptop, fielding calls and emails until Ethan physically took her computer away. "You need to rest," he said. "I need to work." "The company will survive without you for a few weeks." "You don't understand. If I'm not there, then someone else will step up. That's what delegation is for." She glared at him, but she didn't argue. Instead, she let him take care of her, let him bring her meals and books and anything else she needed. It drove her crazy, but she did it. And slowly, the numbers stabilized. At 36 weeks, Olivia's water broke. It was 2 a.m, and Ethan was asleep on the couch in her living room when she shook him awake. "Ethan, it's time." He sat up, disoriented. "What?" "My water broke. We need to go." Everything after that was a blur. The drive to the hospital, the nurses hooking Olivia up to monitors, the contractions that made her grip his hand hard enough to bruise. He stayed beside her the whole time, whispering encouragement, wiping her forehead, breathing with her through the pain. Labor lasted 14 hours, and when their daughter finally came into the world, screaming and red-faced and perfect, Ethan felt something inside him shatter and rebuild all at once. The nurse placed the baby on Olivia's chest, and Olivia looked down at her with tears streaming down her face. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi, baby." Ethan couldn't speak. He just stood there, looking at the two of them, feeling like his heart might explode. "What do we name her?" Olivia asked. They'd talked about names, but never settled on one. Now, looking at this tiny person who had just turned their lives upside down, Ethan knew. "Emma," he said. "Her name is Emma." Olivia looked at him, smiled. "Emma, I like it." The nurse took the baby to clean her up, and Ethan sat beside Olivia, taking her hand. "We did it," she said. "Yeah, we did." She closed her eyes, exhausted, and he kissed her forehead. They'd made it this far. And somehow, despite everything, they were going to make it the rest of the way, too. The first night home from the hospital, Emma screamed for 4 hours straight. Ethan walked her around Olivia's apartment, bouncing her gently, trying everything he remembered from when Maya was a baby. Nothing worked. She just kept crying, her face red and scrunched, her tiny fists waving. Olivia sat on the couch, looking like she'd been hit by a truck. She'd barely slept in 2 days, and the stitches from delivery made it painful to move. "What's wrong with her?" "Nothing's wrong. She's just a baby. She hates me." "She doesn't hate you. She won't stop crying. That's what babies do." Olivia's face crumpled, and Ethan realized she was about to cry too. He handed Emma to her carefully, watching as Olivia held their daughter like she might break. "I don't know what I'm doing," Olivia whispered. "Nobody does. You just figure it out as you go. That's a terrible system." "Yeah. Welcome to parenting." Emma finally settled around 3 in the morning, falling asleep mid-cry like someone had flipped a switch. Ethan put her in the bassinet and collapsed beside Olivia on the bed. She was already asleep, still in the same clothes she'd been wearing for 2 days, her hair a mess. He pulled a blanket over her and closed his eyes, knowing he'd be up again in 2 hours. This was his life now. And somehow, it felt right. The next few weeks were a blur of diapers and feedings and sleep deprivation that made Ethan feel like he was losing his mind. He'd forgotten how hard newborns were. Maya had been tough, but at least he'd been younger then, with more energy. Now he was 32, running on 3 hours of sleep, trying to balance Emma and Maya and Olivia and work. Something had to give. He cut back his hours at the HVAC company, picking up only the jobs he absolutely needed to pay bills. It meant less money, but more time, and right now time was the only currency that mattered. Maya stayed with Mrs. Kowalski most afternoons after school, which the older woman seemed thrilled about. She'd stopped by once to meet Emma and had nearly cried holding her. "Such a beautiful baby," she'd said in her thick Polish accent. "You are blessed, man, Ethan." He didn't feel blessed. He felt exhausted, but he smiled and thanked her anyway. Olivia tried to go back to work after 3 weeks. She made it 2 days before Ethan found her crying in the nursery at midnight, Emma sleeping in the crib beside her. "I can't do this," she said when he sat down next to her on the floor. "Can't do what?" "Any of it. The company wants me in meetings. My assistant keeps calling. The board is pushing me to finalize the Anderson deal. And I just..." She wiped her eyes. "I just want to sleep. Is that selfish?" "No, it's human. I feel like I'm failing at everything. I'm a terrible mother. I'm a terrible CEO. I can't even keep my own kid from crying." "You're not terrible at anything. You're just tired. That's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a reason." He took her hand. "You just had a baby. Your body is recovering. Your hormones are everywhere. Give yourself a break." "I don't know how." He kissed her forehead. "Then let me help you." She leaned into him, and they sat there on the nursery floor, listening to Emma breathe, and Ethan felt the weight of what they were trying to build. It was heavy. It was hard. But it was theirs. Olivia took a leave of absence from the company. 6 weeks, she said, though Ethan suspected it would need to be longer. Her second-in-command took over day-to-day operations, and Olivia tried to let go of the control she'd spent years building. It didn't come easy. She'd check her phone constantly, reading emails she wasn't supposed to be reading, answering calls she'd promised not to take. "You're not on leave if you're still working," Ethan said one afternoon, taking her phone out of her hands. "I'm just checking." "No, you're not." She glared at him, but she didn't fight. Instead, she picked up Emma from the swing and held her close, burying her face in the baby's neck. "What am I supposed to do if I'm not working?" "Be here, with us." "I don't know how to do that." "Then learn." It was harsh, but it was true. Olivia had spent her entire adult life building a company, proving herself, fighting for respect in rooms full of men who thought she didn't belong. She didn't know how to slow down, didn't know how to just exist without a goal to chase. But slowly, she started to figure it out. She'd sit with Emma in the mornings, just holding her, watching her sleep. She'd ask Ethan questions about Maya, about what 8-year-olds liked, about how to connect with a kid who wasn't a baby anymore. She started cooking, badly at first, burning pasta and oversalting everything, but she kept trying. And Ethan watched her transform from the woman who'd needed a fake boyfriend at a party into someone softer, someone real. Maya came over most weekends, and Ethan watched his two daughters exist in the same space, trying to find their rhythm. Maya was fascinated by Emma at first, asking to hold her, talking to her in a high-pitched voice that made Ethan's heart hurt. But the novelty wore off after a few weeks, and Maya got bored. Babies didn't do much. They just ate and slept and cried. "When is she going to be fun?" Maya asked one Saturday afternoon. "Give her a few months," Ethan said. "That's forever." "Welcome to being a big sister." Maya wrinkled her nose. "This is harder than I thought." "Yeah, most things are." But despite the complaints, Ethan saw the way Maya looked at Emma when she thought no one was watching. Protective. Curious. Like she was trying to figure out what this new person meant for her life. And when Emma grabbed Maya's finger one afternoon and held on, Maya's whole face lit up. "Dad, look! She's holding my hand!" "I see that. She likes me." "Of course she does." Maya grinned, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. Maybe this would work. Maybe they could actually be a family. But then Olivia's body started betraying her. It started small. She was tired all the time, more than the normal postpartum exhaustion. She'd get dizzy standing up, her vision going spotty. She brushed it off at first, told Ethan it was just recovery, just her body adjusting. But when she fainted in the kitchen one afternoon, Emma in her arms, Ethan caught her just before she hit the floor. "That's it," he said, his heart pounding. "We're going to the doctor." "I'm fine." "You just passed out. You're not fine." She wanted to argue, but she was too weak. He called Mrs. Kowalski to watch Emma and drove Olivia to the emergency room, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. The doctors ran tests, blood work, scans, more tests. Olivia sat in the hospital bed, pale and small, and Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand and trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Finally, a doctor came in, her face serious. "Your iron levels are extremely low," she said. "Dangerously low, and your blood pressure is all over the place. We need to keep you overnight for observation." "I have a baby at home," Olivia said. "The baby will be fine. You need to take care of yourself." Olivia looked at Ethan, and he saw the fear in her eyes. "Okay." They kept her for 2 days. Ethan brought Emma to visit, juggling the baby, and trying to reassure Olivia that everything was under control, even though it wasn't. Maya stayed with Mrs. Kowalski, who fed her pierogies and let her stay up too late watching cartoons. Ethan barely slept, running between the hospital and home, trying to keep all the pieces from falling apart. When Olivia finally came home, she looked fragile in a way that scared him. The doctors had given her iron supplements and instructions to rest, but Ethan could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she moved like everything hurt. "I'm okay," she said when she saw his face. "You're not." "I will be." He wanted to believe her, but something in his gut told him this wasn't over. The next month was a careful balancing act. Olivia rested as much as she could, but Emma didn't care about rest. She needed to be fed and changed and held, and Olivia pushed herself to do it even when Ethan could see she was running on empty. He tried to take over as much as possible, but there were some things only Olivia could do. Breastfeeding, comforting Emma when she cried for her mother, being present. And Olivia was present, even when she was exhausted, even when her body was screaming at her to stop. She showed up, but Ethan could see the cracks forming. One night, he found her in the bathroom, sitting on the floor, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Hey," he said, sitting down beside her. "What's wrong?" "I can't do this." "Yes, you can." "No, I can't." She looked at him, her face streaked with tears. "I love her. I love Emma so much it scares me, but I don't know how to be a mother and still be me. I don't know how to do both." You don't have to do both perfectly. You just have to do your best." "My best isn't good enough." "Says who?" She didn't answer. He pulled her into his arms and she collapsed against him, shaking. "You're doing amazing," he whispered. "You're tired and scared and your body is still recovering. But you're here. You're trying. That's all that matters." "What if it's not enough?" It is. I promise. She cried until she didn't have any tears left, and then she just sat there, breathing. Eventually, she pulled away and wiped her face. I'm sorry. Don't be. I didn't think it would be this hard. Nobody does. She laughed, but it was hollow. How did you do this alone? I didn't have a choice. You do. You have me. She looked at him, and he saw something shift in her eyes. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you don't have to find out. He helped her up, and they went back to bed, curling around each other in the dark. Emma was asleep in the bassinet beside them, and Ethan listened to her breathe, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him like a blanket. This was his family now. Messy and complicated and nothing like he'd planned. But his. The weeks turned into months. Emma grew, hitting milestones that made Ethan's chest ache. Her first smile, her first laugh. The way she'd track him across the room with her eyes, recognizing him. Maya came over more often, slowly warming up to the idea of being a big sister. She'd read to Emma, showing her picture books and making up voices for the characters. Emma would stare at her, fascinated, and Maya would glow. I think she likes my stories, Maya said one afternoon. I think you're right. Good, because I have a lot of them. Ethan watched his daughters together and felt something settle in his chest. This was working. Against all odds, it was actually working. Olivia started feeling better. The iron supplements kicked in, and her energy came back. She started working again, just a few hours a day, taking calls from home while Emma napped. It wasn't the same as before. She couldn't throw herself into the company the way she used to, but it was something, a tether to the life she'd built before everything changed. How's the Anderson deal? Ethan asked one night while they were making dinner. Close. My team thinks we'll finalize next week. That's good. Yeah. She chopped an onion, focusing too hard on the task. It's weird, though. What is? I spent months on that deal. It was all I could think about. And now, she shrugged. It doesn't feel as important. What feels important? She looked at him, then at Emma in the swing nearby. This, you, her, Maya, all of it. He stepped closer, kissed her temple. You're allowed to care about both. I know, but I don't think I can do both the way I used to. Something has to give. So let it give. She leaned into him, and they stood there in the kitchen, the smell of onions and garlic filling the air, and Ethan felt the life they were building solidify around them. But then, 3 months after Emma was born, Olivia started bleeding. It was the middle of the night. Ethan woke to her shaking him, her voice tight with panic. Ethan, something's wrong. He sat up, immediately awake. What? I'm bleeding, a lot. He turned on the light and saw the blood on the sheets, and his heart stopped. We need to go to the hospital. What about Emma? I'll call Mrs. Kowalski. He moved fast, calling their neighbor, throwing on clothes, helping Olivia to the car. She was pale, shaking, and he could see the fear in her eyes. The bleeding wasn't stopping. Mrs. Kowalski arrived within minutes, still in her nightgown, and took Emma without question. Go, she said. I take care of baby. You take care of her. The drive to the hospital was the longest 10 minutes of Ethan's life. Olivia sat beside him, pressing a towel between her legs, her breathing shallow. He kept one hand on the wheel and one hand on hers, trying to keep his own panic at bay. You're going to be okay, he said. What if I'm not? You are. Ethan, you are. He said it like he could make it true. The emergency room was chaos. They rushed Olivia back immediately, and Ethan followed, refusing to leave her side. Doctors and nurses swarmed, asking questions, checking vitals, starting IVs. Olivia looked so small in the hospital bed, so fragile, and Ethan felt his chest tighten. Sir, we need you to step outside, a nurse said. I'm not leaving her. Sir, I'm not leaving. The nurse looked at Olivia, who nodded weakly. He stays. They ran tests, more blood work, an ultrasound, a scan. Ethan stood beside Olivia, holding her hand, watching the monitors beep and flash. She was losing blood fast, too fast. Finally, a doctor came in, her face grim. We need to take you into surgery. You have retained placental tissue that's causing hemorrhaging. If we don't remove it now, you could go into shock. Olivia's eyes went wide. How long will I be out? A few hours. I have a baby. Your baby will be fine. You need to let us take care of you. Olivia looked at Ethan, and he saw the terror in her eyes. What if something goes wrong? Nothing's going to go wrong. You don't know that. I do. He leaned down, kissed her forehead. You're the strongest person I know. You're going to get through this. Ethan, I love you, and I'll be right here when you wake up. Tears slid down her face. I love you too. They wheeled her away, and Ethan stood in the hallway, watching until she disappeared through the double doors. Then he collapsed into a chair, put his head in his hands, and tried not to fall apart. The surgery took 3 hours. Ethan paced the waiting room, his phone buzzing with messages he didn't answer. Mrs. Kowalski sent updates about Emma. She's fine, she's sleeping, don't worry. Maya texted asking if Olivia was okay. He didn't know how to answer. Finally, the doctor came out, still in her scrubs. Ethan stood up so fast he almost knocked over the chair. She's stable, the doctor said. We removed the tissue and stopped the bleeding. She lost a lot of blood, so we gave her a transfusion, but she's going to be okay. Ethan felt his knees go weak. Can I see her? She's in recovery. Give her another hour. Okay. Thank you. The doctor left, and Ethan sat back down, put his face in his hands, and let himself breathe for the first time in hours. When they finally let him see her, Olivia was awake but groggy, her face pale against the white sheets. She looked at him and tried to smile. Hey. Hey. He sat beside the bed, took her hand. How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Yeah, you look like it too. She laughed, but it turned into a wince. Don't make me laugh, it hurts. Sorry. They sat in silence for a moment, and Ethan felt the fear slowly drain out of him. She was okay. She was going to be okay. I was scared, Olivia said quietly. Me too. I kept thinking about Emma, about you, about Maya, about everything I'd miss if... She stopped, swallowed. I don't want to miss anything. You won't. How do you know? Because I won't let you. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. I'm holding you to that. Good. They kept her in the hospital for 2 more days, monitoring her recovery. Ethan barely left, sleeping in the chair beside her bed, bringing her terrible hospital food she picked at but didn't eat. Emma stayed with Mrs. Kowalski, and Ethan video called every few hours so Olivia could see her. The baby didn't understand what was happening, but Olivia cried every time she saw her face on the screen. I miss her, she said. I know. You'll be home soon. What if this happens again? It won't. You don't know that. Then we'll deal with it, together. She looked at him, and he saw the trust in her eyes, the belief that he meant what he said. And he did. Whatever came next, they'd face it. Because that's what you did when you loved someone. You showed up, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. When Olivia finally came home, Emma was waiting. Mrs. Kowalski had dressed her in a little outfit with flowers on it, and she cooed when Olivia picked her up, carefully, mindful of the incision still healing. Hi, baby, Olivia whispered. Mommy missed you so much. Emma grabbed her finger, and Olivia started crying again. Ethan wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood there in the living room, holding each other, and he felt the fragility of what they'd built. It could break so easily, but it was still here, still standing. That night, after Emma was asleep and Olivia was resting in bed, Ethan sat on the couch and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back. The fear, the exhaustion, the relief. He'd almost lost her, almost lost the future they were building, and the thought of it made him sick. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in months. His mom. They didn't talk much. She'd moved to Arizona after his dad died, and they drifted. But he needed to hear her voice. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Ethan? Hey, Mom. Is everything okay? You never call? Yeah, everything's... He stopped. No, everything's not okay, but it will be. What happened? He told her everything about Olivia, about Emma, about the surgery, and the fear, and the life he was trying to build. She listened without interrupting, and when he finished, there was a long silence. You love her, his mom finally said. Yeah, well, then marry her. What? Marry her, Ethan. Life's too short to wait for the right moment. If you love her, make it official. He hadn't thought about marriage, not seriously. They'd been too busy surviving to think about the future. But now, sitting in the dark, he realized his mom was right. He wanted to marry Olivia, wanted to make this permanent, wanted to build something that couldn't be undone. Yeah, he said. Maybe I will. His mom laughed. Good. About time you did something right. Thanks, Mom. Anytime, baby. Now go take care of your family. He hung up and sat there for a long time, thinking. Then he got up, walked into the bedroom, and looked at Olivia sleeping, Emma in the bassinet beside her. This was his family, messy and complicated and held together by duct tape and sheer will. But it was his, and he wasn't going to let it fall apart. Ethan didn't buy a ring right away. He couldn't afford the kind of ring Olivia probably expected, the kind with a rock the size of a marble that cost more than his truck. But he also knew she wasn't the type to care about things like that. At least he hoped she wasn't. He started looking anyway, during his lunch breaks, wandering into jewelry stores and feeling completely out of his depth. The salespeople would light up when they saw him, all smiles and eager questions, and he'd mumble something about just browsing before fleeing back to his truck. Finally, he went to a small shop on the east side, the kind of place that had been there for decades, and smelled like old wood and metal polish. An older man stood behind the counter, watching him with quiet eyes. Can I help you? The man asked. I need a ring, Ethan said. Nothing crazy, just something that means something. The man nodded slowly. For someone special? Yeah. What's she like? Ethan thought about it. Strong, stubborn, smarter than me, works too hard, doesn't know how to ask for help. Beautiful in a way that makes you forget what you were thinking about. The man smiled. Sounds like someone worth keeping. She is. The jeweler disappeared into the back and returned with a small velvet box. Inside was a simple band with a single diamond, not huge but clear and bright. It looked honest, real. How much, Ethan asked. The number made his stomach drop, but he didn't flinch. He'd make it work. He always did. He bought the ring and hid it in the back of his sock drawer, waiting for the right moment. But the right moment never seemed to come. Olivia was still recovering, still tired, still adjusting to the reality of being a mother. Proposing now felt like adding weight to someone who was already carrying too much. So he waited. Emma turned 4 months old. She started sleeping longer stretches at night, which meant Ethan and Olivia actually got more than 3 consecutive hours of sleep. It felt like a miracle. Olivia's energy came back slowly, and with it, her drive to return to work full-time. Her company needed her, she said. The board was getting restless. Deals were stalling without her direct involvement. I need to go back, she told Ethan one morning while Emma played on a blanket between them. Okay. You're not going to argue? Would it change your mind? She paused. No. Then why would I argue? She looked at him, and he saw the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to work. She needed to work, but she also wanted to be here, with Emma, with him, and she couldn't figure out how to do both without sacrificing something. I'm going to hire a nanny, she said. All right. You're okay with that? It's not my call. She's your daughter, too. Our daughter. The correction made something warm spread through his chest. Right. Our daughter. The nanny was a woman named Susan, mid-50s with gray hair and a calm demeanor that immediately put Ethan at ease. She'd raised 4 kids of her own and had been working with families for 20 years. Emma took to her within minutes, which both relieved and slightly devastated Olivia. She doesn't even care that I'm leaving, Olivia said the first day she went back to the office. She knows you're coming back, Ethan said. That's what matters. How do you know? Because babies aren't stupid. They know who their people are. Olivia left for work looking uncertain, and Ethan spent the day at his own job trying not to think about whether she was okay. She texted him around noon, a picture of her desk piled with folders and contracts, with the caption, "I forgot how much I missed this." He smiled and texted back, "Good. Don't forget to eat." She returned that night looking energized in a way he hadn't seen in months. She swept into the apartment, kissed Emma, kissed him, and launched into a detailed explanation of the meeting she'd just had and the deal she was about to close. Ethan listened, watching her come alive, and realized this was who she was. Not just a mother, not just his partner, but a woman who built things, who fought for what she wanted, who refused to be anything less than what she was capable of. "I'm proud of you," he said when she finally paused for breath. She blinked. "What?" "I'm proud of you. You're killing it." Her eyes went soft. "Thank you. Anytime." The balance they found wasn't perfect. Olivia worked long hours, sometimes coming home after Emma was already asleep. Ethan picked up the slack, working his own shifts, and then taking over when Susan left for the day. Maya came over twice a week, and the apartment became a chaotic mix of baby toys and homework and half-eaten dinners. It was messy and loud, and nothing like what Ethan had imagined his life would look like. But it worked. One Saturday, Olivia suggested they take the girls to the zoo. It was the first real family outing they'd attempted, and Ethan wasn't sure how it would go. Emma was still too young to care about animals, and Maya had proclaimed herself too old for the zoo last year. But they went anyway, packing snacks and diapers, and Maya's attitude into Olivia's car and driving across town. The zoo was crowded, full of families and school groups and teenagers on dates. They wandered through exhibits, Maya walking ahead and pretending she wasn't with them, Emma strapped to Ethan's chest in a carrier, Olivia walking beside him with her hand in his back pocket. "This is nice," she said. "Yeah? Yeah. Normal." He looked at her. "You don't do normal." "Maybe I should start." They stopped in front of the penguin exhibit, and Maya ran back to point out a baby penguin swimming with its mother. "Look! It's like Emma." "Except Emma can't swim," Ethan said. "Yet." Olivia laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that came from somewhere deep, the kind that made Ethan fall in love with her all over again. He watched her watching Maya, watched the softness in her eyes, the way she'd relaxed into this moment, and thought about the ring sitting in his sock drawer. Not yet, but soon. That night, after the girls were asleep and Olivia was curled up beside him on the couch, she turned to him with a serious expression. "I want to talk about something," she said. His stomach dropped. "Okay. I've been thinking about us, about what we're doing." "Olivia, let me finish." She took a breath. "When this started, it was fake. A favor. But it's not fake anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. And I need to know where we stand." "Where do you want us to stand?" "I want this to be real. Officially. I want us to be a family. Not just two people raising a kid together. A real family." He stared at her, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. "Are you asking me to move in?" "I'm asking you to stay, permanently. You and Maya." "You want Maya here too?" "Of course I want Maya here. She's part of this, part of us." Olivia's voice cracked. "I know I'm not her mom. I'm not trying to be, but I care about her, and I hope she cares about me." Ethan didn't know what to say. He'd been so focused on making sure everyone else was okay that he hadn't thought about what he wanted. But now, looking at Olivia, he realized he wanted this. All of it. The chaos and the mess and the life they were building together. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." "Okay?" "Yeah. We'll move in. Me and Maya." Olivia's face broke into a smile, and she kissed him, hard and desperate and full of relief. When they pulled apart, she was crying. "I love you, she said. "I love you too." Moving was harder than Ethan expected. Not logistically, they didn't have much stuff, but emotionally. The apartment on the east side had been his and Maya's home for 6 years. It was where they'd built their life after Maya's mom left, where Maya had learned to ride a bike in the hallway, where Ethan had burned dinners and fixed broken toilets and figured out how to be a dad. Leaving felt like closing a chapter. Maya took it better than he expected. She was excited about having her own room in Olivia's place, about being closer to Emma, about the fancy building with the doorman who always said hello. She packed her things carefully, labeling boxes with a seriousness that made Ethan's chest hurt. "You okay with this?" he asked her the night before the move. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" "It's a big change." She shrugged. "Everything's always changing, at least this change is good." He pulled her into a hug, and she let him, even though she was getting to the age where hugs embarrassed her. "When'd you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just didn't notice." He laughed, and she did too, and he realized she was going to be okay. They all were. The first few weeks in Olivia's apartment were an adjustment. The space was bigger, which meant there was room for everyone, but it also felt impersonal. Olivia had decorated it like a showroom, expensive furniture, art on the walls, everything clean and perfect. It didn't feel like a place where kids lived, so they changed it. Maya's drawings went up on the fridge, Emma's toys took over the living room. Ethan's tools ended up in the hall closet. Slowly, the apartment transformed from Olivia's space into their space, and Olivia didn't fight it. If anything, she seemed relieved. "It feels like a home now," she said one night, looking around at the mess. "You sure? It's kind of a disaster." "It's a beautiful disaster." He kissed her forehead. "Yeah, it is." Work picked up for both of them. Ethan got a promotion at the HVAC company, which came with more responsibility and slightly better pay. Olivia closed the Anderson deal and immediately started working on 3 more. They tag-teamed parenting, passing Emma back and forth like a relay baton, making it work even when it felt impossible. But the cracks started showing again. Olivia was tired all the time. Not the normal tired of being a working mom, but the bone-deep exhaustion that came from something else. She'd fall asleep on the couch at 8, wake up disoriented, drag herself to bed. She started skipping meals, forgetting to eat until Ethan put food in front of her. "You okay?" he asked one night. "Just tired." "You're always tired." "So are you." "That's different." "How?" He didn't have a good answer for that, so he let it go. But he watched her, and the worry sat in his chest like a stone. Then one morning, Olivia woke up and couldn't get out of bed. "I'm fine," she said when Ethan tried to help her sit up. "Just dizzy." "When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday." "Olivia." "I'm fine." But she wasn't. He could see it in the pallor of her skin, the way her hands shook when she tried to stand. He called her doctor, who told him to bring her in immediately. The appointment was tense. The doctor asked questions, took blood, ran tests. Olivia sat on the exam table looking small and scared, and Ethan stood beside her, holding her hand. "Your iron levels have dropped again," the doctor said when the results came back. "Significantly. And your red blood cell count is low. I'm concerned about anemia, possibly related to the hemorrhaging you experienced postpartum." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. "It means she needs to be monitored closely. We'll start her on a higher dose of iron supplements, but if this continues, we may need to look at other treatments." "Like what?" "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, rest and proper nutrition. No skipping meals. And I want to see you back here in 2 weeks." Olivia nodded, but Ethan could see the fear in her eyes. They drove home in silence, and when they got inside, Olivia went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. Ethan stood in the hallway, unsure whether to follow. Finally, he knocked. "Can I come in?" "Yeah." She was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. He sat beside her, close but not touching. "Talk to me," he said. "I'm scared." "I know." "What if it doesn't get better? What if I get worse?" "Then we'll deal with it." "How?" "One day at a time, like we always do." She looked at him, and he saw the vulnerability there, the part of her that she usually kept hidden. "I don't want to be weak." "You're not weak, you're human." "That feels like the same thing." "It's not." She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her together while she fell apart. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Ethan made sure Olivia ate 3 meals a day, even when she wasn't hungry. He cut back his hours at work again, ignoring the looks from his boss. Susan stayed later, helping with Emma so Ethan could focus on Olivia. Maya asked questions he didn't know how to answer. Is Olivia sick? She's just tired. That's what you said before. And then she went to the hospital. She's going to be okay. How do you know? Because I'm not going to let anything happen to her. Maya looked at him with eyes that were too old for her age. You can't control everything, Dad. I can try. The follow-up appointment brought mixed news. Olivia's iron levels had improved slightly, but not as much as the doctor wanted. They ran more tests looking for underlying causes, trying to figure out why her body wasn't recovering the way it should. We're going to schedule you for an infusion, the doctor said. It's an IV treatment that will get iron directly into your bloodstream. It's more effective than pills. How long will that take? Olivia asked. A few hours per session. You'll need 2 or 3 sessions over the next few weeks. Olivia looked at Ethan, and he saw the resignation in her eyes. She didn't want this. Didn't want to be the person who needed medical intervention just to function, but she nodded anyway. Okay. The first infusion was scheduled for the following week. Ethan took the day off and drove her to the clinic, a sterile building that smelled like antiseptic and worry. They sat in a room with other people hooked up to IVs, and Ethan held Olivia's hand while the iron dripped into her veins. This is humiliating, she said quietly. It's not. I'm supposed to be strong, in control, and I can't even keep my blood levels normal. Strength isn't about control. It's about showing up even when everything's falling apart. She looked at him. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. She squeezed his hand and they sat there in silence, surrounded by strangers fighting their own battles, and Ethan felt the weight of what they were carrying. The infusions helped. Slowly, color came back to Olivia's face. She started eating more, sleeping better, moving through the apartment without looking like she might collapse. Emma turned 6 months old and started sitting up on her own, babbling sounds that almost sounded like words. Maya brought home a report card with all A's and 1 B, which she insisted was the teacher's fault. Life started to feel normal again. One night, after Emma was asleep and Maya was at a sleepover, Ethan and Olivia sat on the couch with a bottle of wine between them. It was the first time in months they'd had a night to themselves. This is nice, Olivia said. Yeah. I forgot what quiet sounded like. He laughed. Me too. She turned to look at him, her eyes soft. Thank you. For what? For staying, for not running when things got hard. Where would I go? Most people would have left by now. This isn't what you signed up for. Actually, it's exactly what I signed up for. I just didn't know it at the time. She kissed him, slow and deep, and he felt the years they'd lived in the span of months, the crisis and the love and the sheer stubbornness that had kept them together. I want to marry you, she said when they pulled apart. He stared at her. What? I want to marry you. I don't care about a big wedding or a fancy ring or any of that. I just want to make this official. You and me. Forever. Ethan's heart was pounding. Are you proposing to me? Yeah, I guess I am. He started laughing and she looked offended. What's funny? Nothing, just... He got up, went to the bedroom, and came back with the small velvet box from his sock drawer. He opened it, showing her the ring. I was going to ask you. Her eyes went wide. You were? Yeah, I've been waiting for the right moment, but I guess you beat me to it. She took the box from his hand, staring at the ring. It's perfect. So is that a yes? Yes. Obviously yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. She kissed him again, and they fell into each other, and somewhere in the middle of it, Ethan realized this was the moment. Not perfect, not planned, just real. They decided to get married quickly. No big ceremony, no guest list, no stress. Just them, the girls, and whoever else mattered. They went to the courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon. Olivia in a simple white dress, Ethan in the same suit he'd worn to their first gala. Maya was their witness, holding Emma, who drooled on her fancy outfit. The judge read the vows, and Ethan said, I do, like he meant it. Olivia did the same, her voice steady, her hand in his. When the judge pronounced them married, Maya cheered, and Emma made a noise that might have been a laugh. That's it? Maya asked. You're married now? That's it, Ethan said. Seems too easy. Olivia laughed. Trust me, nothing about this was easy. They went to dinner afterward, a small Italian place that Maya loved, and ate pasta while Emma sat in a high chair and threw food on the floor. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't Instagram-worthy, but it was theirs. That night, after the girls were asleep, Ethan and Olivia lay in bed, her head on his chest, his hand in her hair. We did it, she said. Yeah, we did. I didn't think we'd make it this far. Me neither, but we did. Yeah. She lifted her head to look at him. I love you, Ethan Walker. I love you too, Olivia Walker. She smiled at the sound of her new name, and he kissed her, and they fell asleep wrapped around each other, two people who'd started as strangers and ended up as everything. Being married didn't change everything. The dishes still piled up in the sink. Emma still woke up crying at 2 a.m. Maya still forgot to do her homework until the night before it was due. But something about having the ring on Olivia's finger made it all feel more permanent, like they'd built something that couldn't be undone by bad luck or exhaustion or fear. For 3 months, life was almost good. Olivia's iron levels stabilized. Emma started crawling, pulling herself across the floor with determination that reminded Ethan of her mother. Maya made the honor roll and came home beaming with a certificate that went straight onto the fridge. Ethan got another small raise at work. They fell into a rhythm that felt sustainable, like maybe they'd figured out how to make this work. Then Olivia found the lump. She didn't tell him right away. She found it in the shower one morning, a small hard mass in her left breast that hadn't been there before. She told herself it was nothing, probably a cyst. Women got them all the time, but 3 days later, when it hadn't gone away, she made an appointment with her doctor. Ethan only found out because he saw the appointment reminder on her phone. What's this? He asked, holding up the screen. She was feeding Emma, and she didn't look at him. Just a checkup. It says oncology consult. Her hand stilled. I found something. I'm sure it's nothing. Olivia. I didn't want to worry you until I knew what it was. He felt the fear slam into his chest like a fist. When's the appointment? Tomorrow. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. I'm coming. She looked at him, and he saw the terror she'd been trying to hide. Okay. The appointment was at 10 a.m. They left Emma with Susan and drove to the medical center in silence. Ethan kept his hand on Olivia's knee, and she kept her hand over his, and neither of them said what they were both thinking. The doctor was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She examined Olivia, felt the lump, and ordered a mammogram and ultrasound immediately. They waited in a room that smelled like hand sanitizer and fear, and Ethan watched Olivia's face go blank the way it did when she was trying not to feel anything. The imaging took an hour. When the doctor came back, her face was serious. I'm going to be straight with you, she said. The imaging shows a mass that's concerning. We need to do a biopsy to know for sure, but based on what I'm seeing, I think we should prepare for the possibility that this is cancer. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Olivia's face didn't change. How soon can you do the biopsy? I can get you in tomorrow. Okay. The doctor looked at Ethan, then back at Olivia. Do you have questions? What happens if it's cancer? We'll stage it, figure out how aggressive it is, and come up with a treatment plan. Surgery, possibly radiation or chemotherapy. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need the biopsy results first. Olivia nodded, mechanical, like she was processing information for a business meeting. Okay, thank you. They left the office and got into the car, and Olivia stared straight ahead, not moving. Say something, Ethan said. I don't know what to say. Then let me say it. This is terrifying, and I'm scared, and I know you are too. Her face crumpled, and she started crying, the kind of crying that came from somewhere deep and couldn't be stopped. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and she sobbed against his chest while he held her, his own tears falling into her hair. I can't do this, she choked out. I can't be sick. I have Emma. I have Maya. I have you. I have the company. I can't. You can. And you will, because you're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it. You just have to keep going. She cried until she didn't have anything left, and then they drove home, and Ethan held her hand the whole way. The biopsy confirmed what they'd feared. Stage 2 breast cancer. Aggressive, fast-growing. The doctor recommended a mastectomy followed by chemotherapy and radiation. How long will treatment take, Bucke? Olivia asked. 6 to 8 months, depending on how you respond. And my chances? With treatment, your 5-year survival rate is around 85%. Without it, significantly lower. Olivia nodded, taking it in. When can we start? I'd like to schedule surgery within the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 14 days to prepare for her body to be cut open and part of her removed. Ethan watched Olivia process this, saw her shift into the mode she used for business crises, compartmentalizing the fear so she could function. But that night, when they got home, she fell apart again. I don't want to lose my breast, she said, sitting on the bathroom floor. I know that sounds vain. I know it's stupid, but I don't want to. It's not stupid. It feels stupid. I should just be grateful they can remove it, that there's treatment, but She stopped, shook her head. I hate this. I know. I hate that my body is broken. I hate that I can't control this. I hate that my daughter is going to grow up with a mom who's sick. Your daughter is going to grow up with a mom who fought. That's not nothing. She looked at him, and he saw the rawness in her eyes. What if I don't make it? You will. You don't know that. Then I'll believe it for both of us. She crawled into his lap, and he held her on the bathroom floor while she cried, and he felt the weight of what was coming settle over both of them. They told Maya together. Ethan sat her down on the couch and tried to find words that would make this okay, but there weren't any. Olivia's sick, he said. She has cancer. Maya's face went pale. Is she going to die? No, Olivia said quickly. The doctors are going to fix it, but I'm going to have surgery and then treatment, and I'm going to be tired for a while. How long? A few months? Maya looked between them, her eyes filling with tears. This isn't fair. No, Ethan said. It's not. I don't want you to be sick. Olivia pulled Maya into a hug, and Maya clung to her, crying, I'm going to be okay. I promise. Ethan watched them, these two people he loved, and felt his heart break. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday. Ethan took the week off work, and Olivia's company gave her a leave of absence without hesitation. The board sent flowers and well wishes, but Ethan could tell Olivia didn't care. She was focused on one thing, surviving. The night before the surgery, they lay in bed, Emma sleeping in the bassinet beside them. Olivia was quiet, staring at the ceiling. You scared? Ethan asked. Terrified. Me too. What if something goes wrong? It won't. But what if it does? He turned to face her. Then I'll take care of Emma and Maya, and I'll make sure they know how much you love them, but that's not going to happen, because you're going to get through this. She kissed him, desperate and clinging, and he kissed her back, trying to pour every bit of certainty he didn't feel into it. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. The surgery took 5 hours. Ethan sat in the waiting room with Maya, who did homework she didn't care about, and Emma, who didn't understand why her mother wasn't there. He paced. He drank terrible coffee. He checked his phone every 30 seconds, even though he knew it wouldn't ring. Finally, the surgeon came out, still in scrubs. The surgery went well, she said. We removed the tumor and some surrounding tissue. The lymph nodes were clear, which is good news. She'll need to stay overnight for observation, but she should be able to go home tomorrow. Ethan felt his knees go weak. Thank you. You can see her in about an hour, once she's out of recovery. When they finally let him into the room, Olivia was awake but groggy, her face pale against the white sheets. She looked at him and tried to smile. Hey. Hey. He sat beside the bed, took her hand. How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Yeah, you look like it too. She laughed, but it turned into a wince. Don't make me laugh. Sorry. Maya appeared in the doorway, hesitant. Can I come in? Yeah, kiddo, Olivia said. Come here. Maya walked over and carefully hugged Olivia, mindful of the tubes and wires. I was scared. I know, but I'm okay. Promise? Promise. Ethan watched them and felt something settle in his chest. They were going to get through this. Somehow. Recovery from surgery was brutal. Olivia couldn't lift anything heavier than a coffee cup, which meant she couldn't hold Emma. It devastated her. She'd sit on the couch and watch Ethan feed their daughter, change her, rock her to sleep, and tears would stream down her face. I can't even hold my own kid, she said one night. It's temporary. It doesn't feel temporary. I know, but it is. The drains from the surgery had to be emptied twice a day, a task that made Olivia nauseous and embarrassed. Ethan did it without comment, measuring fluid levels and recording them like the nurse had shown him. He helped her shower, careful around the incision. He made her eat even when she didn't want to. He kept her alive in the small ways that mattered. 2 weeks after surgery, they got the pathology report. The margins were clear. The lymph nodes were clean. But the tumor had been aggressive, which meant chemotherapy was still necessary. 6 rounds, the oncologist said, once every 3 weeks. We'll monitor you closely, adjust if needed. When do we start? Next week. Olivia nodded, taking it in. She'd lost her breast. Now she was going to lose her hair. Ethan saw her hand move to her head, fingers tangling in the dark strands she'd always been proud of. It'll grow back, the doctor said gently. I know, but Ethan could see it in her eyes. She didn't care if it grew back. She cared that it was one more thing being taken from her. The first chemo session was terrifying. They sat in a room full of other people fighting their own battles, and Ethan held Olivia's hand while poison dripped into her veins. She tried to be strong, tried to sit still and not show fear, but he could feel her shaking. You okay? He asked. No. Want me to distract you? How? He pulled out his phone and showed her a video Maya had made that morning, a dance routine she'd choreographed to some pop song, complete with dramatic arm movements and off-key singing. Olivia watched it and started laughing, which turned into crying, which turned into laughing again. She's ridiculous, Olivia said. She gets it from you. I'm not ridiculous. You're a little ridiculous. She smiled, and it was small but real, and Ethan held on to it. The chemo hit her hard. Within a week, she was exhausted, nauseous, unable to keep food down. Her hair started falling out in clumps, and one morning she stood in the bathroom holding a handful of it, tears streaming down her face. I can't do this, she said. Ethan took the clippers from the drawer. Then let me help. What? Let me shave it. You're going to lose it anyway. Might as well do it on your terms. She stared at him, then nodded. Okay. He shaved her head carefully, running the clippers over her scalp while she cried. When he was done, she looked at herself in the mirror, and he saw the devastation in her eyes. I look sick, she whispered. You look like someone who's fighting. I hate it. I know. She turned to him, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her while she fell apart. The weeks blurred together. Chemo. Recovery. Chemo again. Olivia's body rebelled against the treatment, her immune system crashing, her energy non-existent. She couldn't work. Could barely get out of bed some days. Emma was 9 months old and didn't understand why Mommy couldn't play anymore. Maya tried to help, bringing Olivia water and snacks, reading to her when she couldn't sleep. Ethan held everything together through sheer stubbornness. He worked reduced hours, came home to take care of Olivia and the girls, collapsed into bed at midnight, only to wake up 3 hours later when Emma cried. He was running on fumes, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop. One night, he broke down. It was 2 a.m, and Emma had been crying for an hour. Olivia was too weak to help. Maya was asleep, and Ethan stood in the nursery holding his daughter and felt the weight of everything crush him. He put Emma in her crib, still crying, and walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and slid down to the floor. He put his head in his hands and let himself cry, really cry, for the first time in months. He didn't hear Olivia come in. She sat down beside him, moving slowly, and put her hand on his back. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For all of this. He looked at her. This woman who was fighting for her life, apologizing to him. Don't you dare apologize. You're drowning. I'm fine. No, you're not, and that's okay. You don't have to be fine. One of us has to hold it together. We'll take turns. He laughed, but it was broken. I'm scared. Me too. What if you don't make it? Then you'll keep going. For them. For me. I don't want to keep going without you. You won't have to. I'm not going anywhere. She said it with such certainty that he almost believed her. The turning point came during the 4th round of chemo. Olivia's counts dropped dangerously low, and she developed an infection that put her in the hospital for a week. Ethan moved into the room with her, sleeping in the chair beside her bed, leaving only to check on the girls. Emma stayed with Susan full-time. Maya stayed with Mrs. Kowalski, who fed her and made sure she got to school. The infection was bad. For 3 days, Olivia's fever spiked so high the doctors talked about moving her to the ICU. Ethan sat beside her, watching the monitors, listening to her breathe, and prayed to anything that might be listening that she'd be okay. On the 4th day, the fever broke. Olivia opened her eyes, weak but clear, and looked at him. You look terrible. So do you, as she smiled. We're a mess. Yeah, we are. I'm sorry I scared you. You didn't. Liar. He took her hand. Okay. You terrified me. Happy? Not really. Me neither. She squeezed his hand and he felt the strength in it. Small, but there. She was still fighting. The last 2 rounds of chemo were brutal, but Olivia got through them. Her body was battered, her spirit worn thin, but she showed up to every appointment, took every pill, endured every needle stick. And slowly, the finish line got closer. When the oncologist told them she was done with chemo, Olivia cried. Not from relief, but from exhaustion. She'd spent 6 months being poisoned, cut open, and rebuilt. And now she was supposed to just move on like it hadn't happened. How do I go back to normal, she asked Ethan that night. You don't. You build a new normal. I don't know how. Neither do I. But we'll figure it out. She looked at him, and he saw the woman he'd met at that party 2 years ago, the one who'd asked a stranger to pretend to be her boyfriend. Except now she wasn't a stranger. She was his wife, the mother of his daughter, the person he'd fight the world for. I love you, she said. I love you too. Recovery was slow. Olivia's hair started growing back, patchy and short. Her strength returned in increments. She started holding Emma again, playing with her, reading to her at bedtime. She went back to work part-time, easing into the role she'd stepped away from. The company had survived without her, which stung a little, but also freed her to care less about things that didn't matter. Emma turned one. They threw a small party at the apartment, just family and a few close friends. Maya made a birthday banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Emma," with the letters written in different colors. Emma smashed a cupcake into her face and laughed, and Olivia took 1,000 pictures, her eyes bright with tears. She's perfect, Olivia said. Yeah, she is. We made a pretty good kid. We made 2 pretty good kids. Olivia looked at Maya, who was showing Emma how to clap, and smiled. Yeah, we did. 6 months after chemo ended, Olivia got her final scan. Clear. No evidence of disease. The doctor used the word remission, and Olivia nodded like she'd expected it, but Ethan saw her hands shaking. They celebrated that night with takeout and cheap champagne, the girls asleep in their rooms. Olivia curled up beside Ethan on the couch, and they didn't talk. They just existed together, feeling the relief and the fear and the hope that maybe, finally, they'd made it through. Thank you, Olivia said after a while. For what? For not leaving. For staying even when it got impossible. For holding me together when I couldn't do it myself. You would have done the same for me. I hope so. I know so. She kissed him, and he kissed her back, and they fell asleep on the couch, wrapped around each other. Life didn't become perfect after that. Olivia still had scans every 3 months, and the anxiety before each one was crushing. Ethan still worked too much and worried too much and struggled to let go of the fear that had lived in his chest for a year. Maya became a moody preteen who rolled her eyes at everything. Emma turned into a toddler with opinions and a temper that rivaled her mother's, but they were together. And that was enough. One Saturday, almost 2 years after that first party where Ethan had agreed to pretend to be Olivia's boyfriend, they took the girls to the park. Emma ran ahead, chasing pigeons, while Maya walked beside them, earbuds in, pretending she was too cool for family time. "You ever think about how we got here?" Olivia asked. "All the time. It's kind of crazy." "Yeah, it is. If I hadn't asked you that night, but you did. I know. But what if I hadn't? Then I'd be a lonely HVAC guy and you'd be a miserable billionaire and Emma wouldn't exist," she laughed. "When you put it that way, that's the only way to put it." They watched Emma trip over her own feet and get back up, laughing. Maya pulled out her earbuds and jogged over to help her sister, and Ethan felt his chest tighten with something he couldn't name. "We did good," Olivia said. "Yeah, we did. I mean it. We started with nothing. A lie. A favor. And we built this. You sound surprised." "I am. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A real one." "Me neither." She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her. "I'm glad I asked you. I'm glad I said yes." They stood there watching their daughters, and Ethan thought about everything they'd survived. The pregnancy, the hemorrhaging, the cancer, the fear, the exhaustion. The moments when it would have been easier to give up. But they hadn't given up. They'd shown up every single day. And somehow, that had been enough. Emma ran back to them, her face flushed and happy. "Daddy, pick me up." He scooped her into his arms, and she giggled, grabbing his face with sticky hands. Maya came over, rolling her eyes but smiling, and Olivia pulled her into a side hug that Maya pretended to hate but leaned into anyway. "Family photo," Olivia said, pulling out her phone. "Do we have to?" Maya groaned. Yes. They crowded together, Emma squirming, Maya sighing dramatically, Ethan trying to hold everyone in frame while Olivia stretched her arm out. The photo came out blurry and off-center, Emma's face half cut off, Maya's eyes closed. "It's perfect," Olivia said, looking at it. "It's a disaster," Maya said. "Same thing." Ethan looked at the photo, at this messy, imperfect family they'd built from nothing, and realized Olivia was right. It was perfect. Not because it was flawless, but because it was real. They'd started with a lie, a fake relationship to get through one night. But somewhere along the way, the lie had become the truth. They'd become a family, not the kind you saw in movies or magazines, all polished and easy, the kind that survived through stubbornness and love and sheer refusal to quit. And maybe that was the whole point. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth fighting for, even when the fight got ugly. Especially then. Ethan looked at Olivia, this woman who'd asked a stranger to save her from a party and ended up saving him right back. She smiled at him, and he smiled back, and Emma tugged on his shirt. "Ice cream?" she asked hopefully. "Yeah, kiddo. We can get ice cream." They walked toward the ice cream truck at the edge of the park, Maya trailing behind them, still pretending she was too cool for this, but secretly happy anyway. And Ethan felt the weight he'd been carrying for 2 years finally lift. They'd made it. Against all odds, through every crisis, past every moment when it would have been easier to walk away. They'd made it. And as they stood in line for ice cream, Emma on his hip and Olivia's hand in his, Ethan realized something he should have known all along. This was what he'd been waiting for his whole life. Not perfection, not easy, just this. Messy and hard and beautiful and real. A family. His family. And he wouldn't change a single thing.